See you tomorrow at 5. Here's CBS.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rattle reporting. Good evening. A major decision by the U.S. Supreme Court today in the so-called case of the preacher versus the pornographer, a ruling expanding the constitutional protection of parody and satire. The justices threw out a $200,000 emotional distress judgment that television preacher Jerry Falwell won from Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flynt. Our law correspondent Rita Braver reports on the new boundaries on bad taste and free speech.
A unanimous Supreme Court rallied to the cause of Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flynt, ruling that even satire that is pornographic and outrageous is protected by the First Amendment.
I felt it's got to be one, or we're going to turn the clock back, to the 18th century.
The court upheld Flynt's right to poke fun at fundamentalist preacher Jerry Falwell. In a parody of a liquor advertisement, Hustler said that Falwell's first sexual encounter was with his mother in an outhouse in Virginia. Lower courts ruled that the ad did not libel Falwell because no one would believe it was true, but they did award him $200,000 for emotional distress. The Supreme Court struck down that award. The opinion by Chief Justice William Rehnquist said, "In the world of debate about public affairs, many things done with motives that are less than admirable are protected by the First Amendment."
What we were trying to say is that there is a line. There is a line where media may not go. And that line, I think, was crossed by Mr. Flynt when he attacked my mother, who has been in heaven for 10 years.
It means that irresponsible media are at liberty with impunity to trash anybody they want without redress.
But the court said this country has a tradition of intentionally injurious satire and caustic cartoons like the ones Thomas Nast drew in the 1800s. And cartoonists like Herb Locke of the Washington Post insist that it's good for the country when public figures are needled.
It punctures pomposity and it shows them up when they say things that really don't add up or that are ridiculous.
So the Supreme Court today had an answer for the man in this Herb Locke cartoon who asks, "I suffer emotional distress when I tune in to Jerry Falwell. Should I sue him or just take an antacid pill?" Just take the pill. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
CBS News 60 Minutes correspondent Morley Safer is here now with more on the Supreme Court ruling on the right to spoof, the serious principles at stake, and the smut that's now protected. Morley?
Anything goes now, Dan. What used to be hidden in plain brown wrappers is now everywhere. Magazines like Hustler that know no bounds. Newspapers like the National Enquirer that thrive on alleged scandals with often only a casual interest in the facts. The targets usually are celebrities. Today's decision offers the Supreme Court's cloak of protection to such publications.
If freedom of speech works only for those publications that we think are all right, then it's not going to work for anybody. It's a ringing endorsement of basic First Amendment freedoms. It is a great day for freedom of expression.
So now pornographers can be considered satirists. They join editorial cartoonists who've long been a part of the honorable tradition of America's editorial pages.
Just cut it in a style that will be universally popular.
Certainly, madam.
They receive the same protection as the growing number of satirists lampooning public figures on television. Not every lawyer is pleased.
Isn't it a strange thing to see these old conservative judges, with all due respect, with their arms embracing Hustler magazine, with their protective cloak put out around Larry Flynt? It seems that it's more important that we be able to sell something obscene than it is to have our freedoms preserved.
If the publisher decides he won't tell just a little lie or even a big lie, he'll tell a really gross lie, call it satire, and he can get away with it.
If it is indeed satire, then he absolutely can get away with it.
Attorneys specializing in libel say they have watched the Rehnquist court closely to see how it would rule on First Amendment cases, especially those cases involving publishers perceived to be unsavory. Today's ruling left little doubt.
The fact that it was a unanimous opinion and that it is a clarion call for free speech, even for speech that we hate, that really does surprise me.
Where are we going in this country when our Supreme Court joins in the minuet with Hustler magazine?
Larry Flint once told me when he was trying to recruit support among journalists for his right to publish Hustler that in defending his right, we would be defending the New York Times and CBS News. I'm not so sure about that, but the Supreme Court does say we are all in the same boat.
What do you think, Morley, and what do the people you talk to believe? Will this open the floodgates to even more outrageous material?
Almost without question. If you think things are rough now on the newsstands, Dan, it's only going to get rougher.
Thanks, Morley. The Supreme Court today expanded the scope of rent control laws, ruling that hardship to the tenant may be considered when the landlord wants a rent increase. The positioning of the candidates today for the March 8th Super Tuesday primaries included another startler from Republican presidential candidate Pat Robertson. CBS News correspondent Eric Ingberg reports on the aftermath of last night's contests in South Dakota and Minnesota and the road south to Super Tuesday.
Pat Robertson today claimed that his TV company, the Christian Broadcasting Network, had uncovered something the U.S. government could not: the secret hiding places of U.S. hostages in Lebanon.
We identified in our news department at CBN the location of those hostages in Lebanon very shortly after they were taken, and they were in a position where they could have been rescued. They were in Beirut, and they could have been freed.
Robertson did not indicate whether he was speaking of current or past hostages. Pressed for clarification, the former TV minister said his criticisms were aimed at the U.S. failure to use force in the 1985 TWA hijacking, when an American sailor was murdered and 40 Americans were held hostage in Beirut, then freed unharmed after lengthy negotiations. And today, George Bush was angry over a different Robertson claim, that Bush might have leaked the Jimmy Swaggart scandal story in an effort to embarrass Robertson, a friend of Swaggart.
By about sundown tonight, sundown in the Old South, I'd like to see him stand up like a Southern gentleman with a little evidence, or else to apologize.
Robertson admitted he has no evidence on the Swaggart leak.
I don't know who caused it, and
I mentioned George Bush's name yesterday.
Not in that connection. We were speaking about something else.
One Democrat was hanging in today, just barely. Paul Simon said he will not contest the Super Tuesday primaries.
There's no sense in my fooling myself. Well, we just don't have the money.
Simon said he will point to his native Illinois later on, but Democratic pros were skeptical.
You can't skip 20 primaries in the middle and hope to be a major player.
Michael Dukakis, winner of last night's Minnesota caucuses, and Dick Gebhardt, winner of the South Dakota primary, were claiming they now have the momentum. Robert Dole, who won both states while Bush was running behind Robertson, campaigned today with Senator Strom Thurmond, who will try to help Dole erase a Bush-Robertson lead in South Carolina. Eric Ingberg, CBS News, Washington.
In the U.S. Senate, an all-night filibuster fight about overhauling campaign financing laws escalated today into a feud over a rarely used parliamentary tactic: the arrest, capture, and carrying of a U.S. senator feet first into the Senate chamber. Phil Jones is covering the election year hijinks under the dome.
It's nearly midnight, and in the Senate, Republicans missing from the floor are in big trouble.
I move that the Sergeant-at-Arms be instructed to arrest absent senators and bring them to the chamber.
Republicans trying to kill a campaign reform bill with a marathon filibuster are playing a parliamentary game. If enough of them avoid the summons, the Senate will be forced to adjourn.
What a spectacle! United States senators seeing the Sergeant-at-Arms coming and take off in a sprint.
So the Sergeant-at-Arms, with arrest summons in hand, went looking for absent Republicans. One stop here at Senator Packwood's office. And how did he know that fugitive Packwood was inside? The cleaning lady had already snitched. Packwood, already suffering a hand injury from a recent fall, was waiting on the other side of this door.
They got the door about this far, and I by reflex, put my hand up like this to try to push it the other way, and there was unfortunately 3 of them on that side and 1 of me on this side.
In the aftermath today, no hard feelings between the senator and Sergeant-at-Arms, but on the Senate floor, feelings were bitter.
The knock on the door and the forceful entry, smack of Nazi Germany, smack of communist Russia.
Republicans vow to keep up their filibuster, Democrats to keep pushing to limit campaign spending.
We're not going to give up. We're not ever going to give up.
At this rate, the real Senate is starting to match the Hollywood version of a filibuster decades ago.
You think I'm licked? You all think I'm licked? Well, I'm not licked. And I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause.
Bill Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, South Africa's government moves to silence all voices against segregation. Correspondent Bob Simon on a new generation's efforts to end the cycle of violence in the Middle East. And
you just don't have to feed them, don't have to take them to the vet, don't clean the litter box.
Peter Van Sant on how to keep your pet forever. Freeze dry him.
It's a big game, big boy. And that basket seems mighty high. But you know you got the stuff because your mama got you off the ground this morning with a real winner. Howdy ho, wheat, time to gloat. Cause you don't wear no sugar coat. You just can't beat that pure whole wheat. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
I've been writing a lot of stories about aspirin lately, but if you think you've heard all the news about aspirin, think again. Clinical tests now show there's an even better aspirin formula. It's Anacin. Listen, the tests show that compared to regular strength aspirin, Anacin provides a more effective level of pain relief, better relief. The latest good news about aspirin is Anacin.
Anacin, a better aspirin formula.
Why cook in oil, margarine, or butter? All natural Pam adds only 1/10 the fat and calories and keeps food light and delicious. Pam cooking spray, because how you cook is as important as what you cook.
Hey, Halpern, all set? Everyone's waiting in the conference room. Gotcha. Presentation booklets just arrived from the printer. Super. Did you want them all stapled shut like that?
Another senseless career crisis that could have been prevented simply by using PIP.
South Africa's white minority government today outlawed all political activity by the country's leading anti-apartheid, that is, anti-segregation groups. The Minister of Law and Order said the crackdown was designed to, and I quote, end the revolutionary climate. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for opposing apartheid, called it a step toward war. Martha Teichner is our resident South African correspondent.
Today's restrictions crush almost every significant anti-apartheid organization left in South Africa. Technically, they are still legal, but their rallies, marches, protests, and speeches are all banned now. In August, when South Africa's largest anti-apartheid coalition, the United Democratic Front, celebrated its 4th birthday, it was already down, crippled by the state of emergency. Now it is out.
When you have a government that can only survive by the power of the gun, this is a very natural way for a government to try to deal with the opposition.
Key anti-apartheid activists have also been banned, including the entire top leadership of the United Democratic Front not already in jail. They cannot travel freely or address political gatherings. Just before being restricted, UDF President Albertina Sisulu made one last public statement.
The government, as far as we are concerned, is declaring war on the people of South Africa.
Politically powerful black trade unions are the other casualty. COSATU, the largest and most militant black trade union federation, has been restricted to labor matters only, no politics.
If we succeed in curbing this revolutionary activities of the radicals and revolutionaries in our country, it will lead to greater stability, to peace.
Why so harsh a crackdown now? Because this is an important election year in South Africa, and Peter Biabura is a lot more worried about appeasing increasingly militant right-wing whites than he is about proceeding with reform for blacks or preserving civil liberties. He clearly sees the big stick as his most powerful political weapon. Wielding it this time with such complete control over dissent, the government expects only a whimper from South Africa's ever more silent black majority. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Johannesburg.
Arabs killed Arabs today on the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Palestinian villagers attacked the home of a man accused of collaborating with the Israelis. He opened fire on the crowd, killing a 4-year-old boy, and then the crowd dragged him out and lynched him. Israel blamed the incident on the PLO, which has called for revenge against all collaborators. Against that violent backdrop, Secretary of State George Shultz heads for the Middle East tonight, hoping to bring Israel and the Arabs together for talks on the occupied territories. As correspondent Bob Simon reports, the dispute goes back for a generation, and it is changing with the new generation of Arabs and Israelis.
Every day in a Tel Aviv suburb, a fresh batch of bright and eager Israeli boys is transformed into Israeli soldiers. They're given new clothes, new haircuts, and a new face to take on to the streets of the West Bank. Every young Arab they meet there is a soldier too. In the West Bank village of Yamoun, these teenage recruits to the Palestinian cause do battle with Israeli teenagers who, like them, are trying to fight their way out of a situation they were born with. The young men wrapped in keffiyeh say their fathers failed to end the occupation. Young Israelis in and out of uniform say their fathers failed to solve the problem. On both sides, you hear pretty much the same thing from the young people. Our parents have let us down. It's our turn now. We'll take care of it ourselves. Some Palestinian fathers don't think their sons should be throwing stones. They still try, with little success, to exert their authority. So do Israeli fathers who spent their lives worshiping their army. Ram Levy tried to convince his daughter, about to be inducted, not to sign a letter refusing to serve on the West Bank. He was unsuccessful.
We will be the ones who will be exposed to the violence. We will be the ones who will be exposed to the beast in us.
Perhaps it's time for children to teach their parents a few things, like the children in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, who teach their parents that passivity is not enough.
Fathers have very little to teach to their sons.
Their sons on the West Bank aren't getting any formal teaching these days. The Israelis have closed down all the schools. Some kids at this high school in Ramallah pass by now and then to pick up their homework, while just 2 blocks away their classmates are at war with Israeli soldiers and Israeli settlers. No more teachers, no more books. Another kind of education.
Of course, from the situation they're learning. We're living in history.
History, they say, does not take sides. It simply favors the young. Bob Simon, CBS News, Ramallah.
Introducing the all-new Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. 4-wheel disc brakes, a multi-port fuel-injected V6 engine, 4-wheel independent suspension, and aerodynamic styling even the wind can't resist. In short, the new Cutlass Supreme is not your father's Oldsmobile.
Unlike a lot of high-fiber cereals, Fiber One is now low in sodium and has absolutely no added sugar. Fiber One. Get more of the fiber your body needs and less of the stuff it doesn't.
Sometimes it seems like every time you look around, your rug is dirty, especially in those places where people walk the most. Well, try new Woolite Spot and Stain Rug Cleaner. It not only cleans up heavy traffic areas, but because it contains the ingredient Fiber Pill, your rug stays cleaner longer than with the other liquid spray. So when you look up, all you'll see is a beautiful rug. Trust new Woolite Spot and Stain Rug Cleaner for heavy traffic areas. It keeps your rug cleaner longer.
Finally, there's an extra-strength antacid that doesn't taste chalky. Introducing extra-strength Maalox Whip. Extra-strength relief and smooth, creamy taste. New extra-strength Maalox Whip. Extra-strength whipped in, chalky taste wiped out.
Billions of dollars for drug addicts. That was among proposals made today as President Reagan's AIDS Commission released its first formal set of recommendations. And the panel warned that failure to pay the price now will lead to a deadlier reckoning later. From the White House, correspondent Terrence Smith reports.
The Commission calls on federal and state governments to spend $20 billion over the next 10 years to fight AIDS, with most of the money targeted on the fastest growing group of victims, drug abusers.
We're going to see this drug abuse issue blooming up as the real prospective long-term villain for the nation.
The Commission calls for a complete overhaul of the nation's drug treatment system, including 32,000 more drug treatment specialists, 3,300 new drug abuse treatment centers, expanded AIDS education for doctors and dentists. To illustrate the threat posed by drug users and their sexual partners, the Commission forecasts that between 10,000 and 20,000 of their children will be born with AIDS within the next 3 years. Despite the sweep of the Commission's proposals and the huge price tag, some activists still feel it falls short.
It's not enough, and there are still problems with that recommendation that need to be addressed, but this Commission is moving in the right direction.
And I don't think that the amount of money that they're talking about, $2 billion a year, spread out over the whole country, could begin to address that issue.
Admiral Watkins also urged that testing of experimental AIDS treatment drugs be accelerated so that they can be made available to AIDS sufferers.
What is a person with AIDS doing? They're going underground to get the drugs in large numbers. And we should not have a system in this country where that is necessary.
The idea of spending billions on drug addicts is certain to cause controversy, even here at the White House. The Commission's final report is due in June. Then it will be up to the President, if he agrees with its recommendations, to convince Congress to come up with the money. Terrence Smith, CBS News, the White House.
The American Association of Blood Banks today said it is looking into new screening techniques that may further reduce the risk of the AIDS virus being transmitted through blood donations. The organization cited a study in tomorrow's New England Journal of Medicine which said that on rare occasions, blood donors transmit the AIDS virus even though they tested negative for the disease at the time they donated blood. The government today reported that for the first quarter since the spring of 1986, the nation's trade deficit actually narrowed in the final 3 months of the year. A record wave of exports helped the deficit shrink $200 million from the summer. But the Commerce Department said that for the year, the balance of payments trade deficit finished at a record $159.3 billion.
Introducing new A1 poultry sauce, our first sauce ever meant just for chicken. And because its herbs, spices, and fruit were meant just for chicken, new A1 poultry sauce makes the most of chicken any way you make it.
They could see you now out on a fun ship cruise. You're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
There's never been a crisp like this. It's crispy, sweets and raisins.
Honey-touched flakes that stay crispier in milk than any other raisin cereal. Look for the coupon in this Sunday's paper.
Fancy perfuming aftershave. It's got to be a quarterback's locker. Real guys who get mud on their uniforms use rugged, honest stuff. Ice Blue Aqua Velva.
There's something about today's Aqua Velva man.
So you still think linemen are dumb?
Americans spend an estimated $10 to $12 billion a year on their pets, buying the animals, feeding them, and pampering them. And no small part of the expense goes into sometimes elaborate funerals. But to own a pet these days may mean never having to say goodbye. Peter Van Sant explains.
A crushing loss for Steve and Vivian Kosis. But now, freeze-dried Sweetie is back on her bed, and the Kosis. So far, Weber's freeze-dry business has been strictly animalistic, but he's convinced.
Our little girl.
Peter Van Sant, CBS News, St. Petersburg.
Folks, we do not make this stuff up. That's the CBS Evening News. Until our live coverage of President Reagan's news conference tonight at 8 Eastern Time. Dan Rather, see you soon.
You've suffered through all kinds of diets and regimens. But if you don't get enough protein when you're dieting to lose fat, you might lose muscle. Protein can help you keep muscle while you lose fat, and Special K has the highest level of dietary protein available in a cereal. So one reason for including the under 200 calorie Special K breakfast in a balanced diet is rather obvious. Special K. Keep the muscle. Lose the fat.
Ann Robbins is about to get a visit from an old friend. Pain. With age, her minor arthritis has made even simple moves painful ones. That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of minor arthritis pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
Dusting with Pledge has kept this table beautiful for 28 years. And now Endust says watch out for buildup? Come on. Pledge is self-cleaning, so it cleans away old polish.
Pledge, a fresh shine every time.
Excuse me.
No problem. We know about Kaopectate too.
Kaopectate actually absorbs the germs that can cause diarrhea.
Kaopectate, thanks. The diarrhea specialist.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow morning, real estate mogul Donald Trump.
Also, Tommy Lasorda and Kirk Gibson live from spring training on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.